which is assets are anything that produces money for you, and liabilities is anything that costs you money. And let's think of this in the concept of a monthly basis. So anything that costs you something monthly, that's a liability. Anything that puts money in your pocket is an asset. So these are three different mindsets on how people, when they make money from their job, what do they do with that money? So on the poor mindset, traditionally income comes in and expenses go out. So it's money comes in and I spend it. So primarily focus is like a budget, and really concerned with like managing their budgets and making sure that there's more money left over at the end of the month. That would be the primary concern in the poor mindset. If there's money left over, that's a win. You may save that money or maybe indulge and spend that on a vacation or other items that you want. That general mindset will keep your, it'll keep your finances on a poor level where you're always going to need this income to come in to manage the expenses. Even when the income goes up, by the way, you could make $1 million and still have a poor mindset. So don't think it has anything to do with money. You can make $1 million and then spend $1 million or spend even more. And you can see this in terms of athletes or people that win, that they did the lottery or something, right? We talked about that they win a lot of money, but since they don't have the right mindset, they quickly spend it and they're out of the money.
And Pablo,
athletes do that as well.
I was gonna share just real quick, I think when you showed me this, I definitely was in a poor mindset when we talked, and it was actually one of the more powerful moments for me when we talked about this, was like, I think you were saying like, Nico, do you realize that most people your age are like spending their extra money on like sneakers, like $300 sneakers,
Yeah.
And I was just like, just like, that's me, like I literally, that's what I did when I had a great month. I was like, oh, look, I got an extra, $800. So what am I going to spend it on? No, I'll spend it on some shoes and some cool clothes or something. And when you said that, I was just like, it was just a big punch to the chest of like, dang, what am I doing?
Yeah, but it's, to counter that, I mean, where would you learn not to do that, right? I mean,
right.
Especially when you're younger, you're making some money, maybe your first job, you're like, money's coming in, I don't want to, you quickly realize you don't want to spend more than that, and you just kind of stay at that level, and you don't graduate the thinking. The middle class thinking is a little bit more sophisticated, where you make your money from the job, it comes in, and then you buy liabilities. So typically the liabilities purchased in the middle class are a home and cars, and probably student debt as well, are also like the primary liabilities of the middle class. So the majority of your income tends to go towards those things, and that will be paid first. That's why it has the little dot here where it's like, the first thing when money comes in is pay off my debts. I gotta pay my mortgage, I gotta pay my car, I gotta pay my phone and other things that I have, and then actually the phone's and the expenses, but I'm gonna pay my student loan. Yeah, Caesar?
I want to say that 80% of Americans, 80% are in debt.
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
And the average debt is $90,000. $90,000 is the average debt. So we have been doped. We have been, we are like zombies. We are bound by debt. So how can we have assets? If we're in debt, how can we move to the next level if you're in debt all the time?
And you know what's wild about that, Caesar? Your liability is somebody else's asset. Let that sink in. Your liability is someone else's asset.
That's right. We're slaves. We're slaves of those who have the assets.
Right. So we got to think a little bit differently here. The goal is not to collect liabilities, and that doesn't mean a successful life, because in general, that does not give you your time. And it also traps you in that work cycle. That this is the definition of the rat race, is this middle class one, because you have so much of these expenses, you cannot see a way out. How can I do what I want to do, Pablo, when I have to pay my house? I have to pay the school for my kids. I got to do these things. I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? I got to do this, And it's a total trap for your time. And what will happen is you'll stay there until, what happens? I don't know, maybe at retirement age, hopefully your home is worth more. And by the time, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble with their personal home, but by the time you pay off your home, you pay double for it. So even though people think, well, a home is a great investment, add up all your payments. Go look at an amortization schedule and see how much your home actually costs you. It's going to end up costing you double, even though it's a good equity builder and it does, I'm not saying it's a bad investment over a long period of time, but in the short term, it is a liability. It's not an asset. It does not produce money for you every month. It actually costs quite a bit and is usually your largest expense. So, so anyways, that's a little bit about the middle class. The rich mindset, the one that we want to focus on, is radically different than the other ones. And I know this picture shows assets going as income, but even if you had a job, let's say the job was here and the money comes in, the first place it would go is an asset. So I talked with one of my investor friends that we were working on a project, and I was sharing this concept with him, and I was telling him, yeah, like, you know, when people make money, they tend to spend it or, you know, do other things with it, like they don't invest it. And he's like, what else would you do with it? He's a very wealthy guy. He's like, what do you mean they don't invest it? Like, what else would you do with money? In his mind, there's no other thing to do but with money but to put it to work. So the moment he makes any kind of money, he puts that money to work. So an investor's thinking opportunities. What can I do? There's another picture here that kind of shows it. What can I do with this money to make me more money? I shared a little bit, Ivis, about your father, who, you know, came from, you know, the mountains of Puerto Rico, but for some reason has this mindset. I'm like, how did you? I mean, he's a very intelligent man, but when you talk to Roger, he will not be able to tell you his hourly rate. He will not be able to tell you his salary, but he does know what he's making from his investments. And that's the right mindset. How can I get this money making me money back, right?
Yep.
And so it's a beautiful thing. So what happens in this rich mindset? Money comes in from your job, goes into assets which produce more money. From there, from that money is where you pay your liabilities. You can pay your expenses through there. And of course, you should hopefully have money left over to reinvest it again into your assets. And that starts this really nice compounding effect where you have assets creating more money. And eventually, at some point, like we stated earlier on in the first class, at some point, your assets may make more than your expenses automatically. And if you get to that point, well, now you're an investor, right? And so you have a ton of freedom. You can do other things. You can certainly keep your job if you love it, but you're doing it for different reasons now. You're doing it because you want to, not because you have to, and you get to kind of focus on things that you want. So this was the mindsets class, Evis. I kind of gave like a little brief version of it, but if anybody has any questions or comments on that, you know, this is
any feedback on this
any feedback on these slides?
Not on our end. Axel and I are here, so we're processing.
Okay.
We're you know, it's everything that you're sharing. We definitely fall like, you know, just two people that went for education and right in the middle. So we're taking pictures, taking notes, processing.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say there's no amount that you need to make to think. That's something that was a little confusing when I saw this, because when you see poor, middle class, and rich, our brain can't help but think the poor mindset makes less than the rich. I wanted to debunk that. You can be of a rich mindset and make very little money. And the way you can do that is your liabilities are very low. If you're fine with $2,000 a month and that covers all your expenses, and you have a rental property that pays you $2,500, let me tell you something, you're a happy person. You're free. And you can have that rich mindset and say, I'm just going to get another one and another one. And so it doesn't really have anything to do with how much you make. It's how you divide the money when you make it. Where does your money go? And that was the homework of last week, which was, hopefully you guys did that, made an inventory of your cash and understood how much cash am I spending? How much am I saving? And you know, what does that breakdown look like? So that'll be in the last class. I don't want to repeat totally that class, but you know, you really want to get to the 30–40% of your income being invested. That would be the goal.
And Pablo, I think a big question, and maybe, you know, maybe this can be probably maybe it's a whole separate lesson, but I know like one of my biggest feelings, and I feel like it's just one of the biggest questions, is just like, okay, like how do you even get to a place of beginning to invest if you do have debt, if you don't have enough cash? It's like, how do you,
Right. How do you make that transition?
how do you make that transition when every single dollar that you feel is accounted for, and you are week, month to month, um and
Yeah,
you have 20 grand of debt, and you do have school debt or whatever it is,
yeah, I mean, that's a really fascinating question. I mean, number one is you first need to shift your mindset so you stop the bleeding.
That's right.
You need to stop your habits, because what got you in that position, if you don't change that, you're going to get right back into it anyways.
Right.
So a lot of people, as they make more money and work harder, they simply will dig themselves in a deeper hole next time. I deserve a better car. I need a bigger house. I need nicer shoes. You'll fall into that poor mindset of more money comes in, more I spend. More money comes in, more I spend. So really the trick, Nico, to me, of getting out of that is, first you got to break that mindset. You gotta stop that. That's not going to work. Secondly, I would definitely attack that debt. Dave Ramsey is a great resource for that. And the reason why attacking the debt helps is it's almost like having a hole in your boat. So you can make progress, but it's really hard to build wealth with debt. It's very, very difficult. The only way you can do it is if you have good debt. Like good debt would be, there's an amazing opportunity to flip this house. I'm going to get it for 400,000. I'm going to sell it for 800,000, right? That's an amazing flip. So I'm going to go get in debt for this 400,000 and flip it for 8. That would be good debt. And that's good leverage. Maybe I use 100 grand of my own money to get the 400. So I'm borrowing 3, but I know that this is going to produce another 200,000-300,000 in profit. Wonderful. Bad debt, I think we all know what that is. Credit card debt, heavy student loan debt that you're going to drag out for 20-30 years, and is really just punching down your ability to build wealth. So the sooner you can get out of that, you're going to start generating at a much faster rate. So it starts to really build up over time. So I would say, the Dave Ramsey approach, I like his approach for getting out of debt. Having the emergency savings fund of 6 months, like the whole baby steps, I think is very good as a starting point. And then somewhere around step 4, I think, if I believe it's correct, you're ready to really start investing. I will say that if you have a retirement fund or something like that, and you're making money and you still have student debt, I think it's still a good idea. If you can get money from your employer to give you on 401k, I would max that out even if I had debt, because I'm not turning down free money. So
Right.
I'm a little bit weird with, I know Dave Ramsey would say, pay all your debt off first. I think there are some gray areas in there where there are some investments that make sense while you're getting out of debt. And I would say the 401k being matched by your employer would definitely fall into that category.
Patty had a question, I think.
Who?
Hi, Pablo. Hey,
Hey. Oh, hey, Patty. I see you now.
Yep.
Ooh, nice background.
thank you. Happy Pride Month. Um,
Okay.
I had a question, I slash more of a comment too. Would you say that good debt equals investing? Like that would be an investment? And would you say that those good debts, like would be creating anything that brings up your credit score, anything that makes you more valuable in terms of like a good credit card or buying a car to bring up your credit score? Would that be considered an investment as well?
Yeah, but it needs to be in a point like it's okay to have a credit card, right? But like you should be able to pay it off at any given time. If you're not able to wipe out your entire credit card debt, I would say that's a red flag.
Oh yeah,
Do
no,
not
no,
pay off
I meant like for example, I just want to make sure people understand that getting a credit card is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
and that it's like you can use that, especially if you start building up your credit, you're gonna have like better credit cards offered to you. Just use it like you would a bank account. Like if you use it, any
Get those
cash
miles,
back stuff,
baby.
that's miles, cash back, all of that, that's like
Rewards.
free
Yeah.
money. You have to make the system work for you. And
Yeah.
then when you were also talking about the 6 month savings that David Ramsey, Is that right?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
keep on wanting to say Gordon Ramsay. That's the wrong Ramsay.
Great, how about the Great Ramsay?
That would be funny though. That would be very funny.
But like making that savings work for you, putting it in a low interest savings account like Chime, it gives you like 0.50% back on whatever you have in there. So it's like that's growing your savings as well. So I'm wondering if like good debt equals investment.
Yeah, those are all really good comments, Patty. And I think it comes down to your personal situation, right? So for example, if you cannot control yourself with your credit card and it's getting you into trouble, cut that card. Yeah, like if that's like, like the biblical thing, right? If your hand's getting you in trouble, chop it off. Like seriously, if you can't handle it and you're consistently in credit card debt, then it's not going to work for you. If your credit card has a limit of 25 grand and you always use 2-3 grand a month for expenses and you pay it off at the end of the month, hey, that's great. Put the vacation on there, do this, that, pay it off at the end of the month like nothing. That's awesome. You're not paying any interest. So you just kind of have to be really back to the mindset stuff. You have to be really honest with yourself of where you're at and what are you doing. Those are like little tweaks, but I think Dave Ramsey gives some blanket rules because most of the people he's probably dealing with are coming with some heavy debt and they cannot be trusted with credit cards. So it's a little bit more radical, and that's probably how he's getting those results. Yes, Cesar?
Pablo, the credit card companies use a lot of gimmicks to get us into debt. And they will use all sorts of games and strategies.
My heart.
They have thought about that very carefully.
Yes.
But the usual person who uses credit, the way that Patty's mentioning is very limited compared to the majority of people who begin to pay high interest on a credit card. I am one of them. People are getting debt very easily with credit cards because it gives you the illusion of power.
So easy.
It gives you the illusion of power, but you don't really have it. Or when you buy a new car and you get a debt in a car, and you're paying high interest on that car, you never own it. Really, it's not yours. It's not yours. It belongs to the bank. So you think that you're paying it, but it's yours. But that's not an asset. Really, that's not an asset. That's a liability.
100% is a liability. So yeah, that's the only thing I would say, Patty, is I totally agree with your comments, but to your dad's point, you have to be very self-disciplined and probably have a lot of these principles already in place just to be able to do what you're saying. It's like a very responsible person already financially. But giving a credit card to someone that's not financially responsible is like giving a loaded gun to someone, like it's very dangerous if they don't know what they're doing with it. And you can get into a lot of trouble with that. With things like that. But I want to jump in to today's lesson, which is also from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which what I'm going to show you guys today, probably I learned it a long time ago. Maybe a lot of you know it already and are very familiar with it, but we're going to break it down a little bit differently today. So you'll get a fresh perspective for sure. But this is really what really changed. I was like, whoa, when I learned this, it was pretty fascinating. And I do think we should spend some time thinking of how to move in these different quadrants, because it is not easy to move from one to the other. In fact, as Cesar said, and we saw the middle class, money mindset, it is like you're going against an ocean to get out of these quadrants, and it's really hard. So I want us to spend some time thinking about that and what these represent. So I'm going to bring up an image here. This is the 4 ways that people primarily make money. And the system is designed for 95% of the population to be on this left side, either an employee or self-employed, meaning you have your own business. So let's just kind of break each one of these down. And I'd love dialogue on this, guys. So if you guys have any feedback, I think we have a good sized group that we can do that. So let's just jump in. The employee quadrant, typically you make money by your time. So you see time equals money, you have a job, and you can make more money by kind of climbing that, I have this image here. You kind of climb the corporate ladder, right? So you get some skills or certifications. This is where your college degree really kicks in, and your experience in the corporate world. You can start moving up, and this is how you make more money in the corporate world, right? Climbing the corporate ladder, and you kind of get this more of a career approach. Nothing wrong with it, but that is the employee box. As you make more money, though, you are taxed more. So if you make more money as an employee, your income tax will go through the roof. You don't even see that money, by the way. It is just gone from your paycheck, right? So typically somebody in the employee quadrant is thinking about a really secure job, a good job that pays well, covers their expenses, and gives them like good benefits. So security, stability is very desired in this. A lot of value for that. The amount of incomes you can have here, I would say 3 tops in an employee box, maybe 3 tops. If you have a really serious job, maybe 2, maybe a main job and a side job. And more than that, burnout starts to happen and you just can't.
No time.
Yeah, there's just no more time in the day.
Yeah.
You're burnt out. So that's the employee box. Right under that is self-employed. And it seems very different, but it's actually very similar and almost a lot worse. I'm gonna explain why. So self-employed,
I'm surprised to see it says 95% of the population there.
95% of the population in the employee and self-employed in both of those 2 boxes. Now,
Okay.
yeah, it's not, it doesn't mean that the self-employed is 95%. What it means by no leverage is that your leverage, by the way, when you see the no leverage, it just means that you don't have a lot of leverage besides your skills. So your skills are your leverage and that's it. That's what you got. Can you do the job well or not? In the self-employed, you tend to be a little bit more specialized in that job. So you may be really good at whatever you decided to start a business in. But here's some of the issues. So although you are your own boss, you are still exchanging time for money. So if you don't work, this is like your realtor, maybe if you own a private business doing something, some service, right? But if you don't work, no money comes in. If you just fall asleep all day, you are not going to make any money in that self-employed box. So the bad stuff about it is the pressure is much higher because in the employee, you have a lot of people working with you that are helping and doing different roles. In self-employed, you are everything. It looks a little bit more like this. You're juggling a lot, and maybe you're a boss, so you look more like this, right? But you're still juggling a lot. Whether you're a good juggler or a bad juggler, you are going to be quite busy. Like this stat said, 86% of business owners say that time management is one of the most critical components. So in that aspect, there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of education around this. We can go deep into this. I know there's a business side to what we're talking about, but generally thinking, people that start their own business on a small business, they are technicians. It's the mechanic that says, why do I work for the corporate, Midas, when I can do the brakes? You know what I mean? I know how to do the brakes. I'm the main guy here. I can start the business. And then that technician is the one that starts a small business. But what is he lacking? He's not a manager and he probably is not an entrepreneur. He's not a businessman, really. He is a technician that knows how to do the work. So there's a fascinating book on this called The E-Myth, if you're interested in the subject. The entrepreneurial myth is that if you were good at something, you would be really good as a business owner of that. And it's just simply not true. Running a business and doing that is a combination of these 3 skills. And no one has all 3 of these 3 skills excellent at the highest level. It's very hard. And in fact, they advise that at the optimal level, you want to be 90% of your time as an entrepreneur, visionary, driving and leading the business, 10% manager, 0% technician, which means that the job that you started because you love so much, because you wanted to bake cookies, you're going to end up not doing that at all if you want it to scale and grow. Because if you are the one doing the cookies, you can only grow so much. So that's the kind of caveat with there. So it's very difficult to be a great, think of all the great companies, the people at the top don't do the work. It doesn't work that way, And then if you think of a small business, you do think of the owners actually doing a lot of the work. So there's that transition of, at some point, as you're growing and scaling your business, you really want to start delegating a lot of that out. And that's what separates some of these, mindsets. So that's the self-employed. Typically pretty exhausted and tired because you have to play every role. You are marketing, you're the tech guys, you're the sales, you're the one if something goes wrong. So that's that. Any questions on employee and self-employed so far?
I did think it was interesting with self-employed because I think like so many people strive to be self-employed to just for the reason of freedom, quote unquote, you know, it's almost like this like false trap, you know?
It is a total trap. In fact, a lot of self-employed people go right back to being an employee because it's just so much easier. It's just so much easier. So they just go right back. And either way, you're exchanging time for money. So at some point they go, you know what, this is not working. I'm just going to go right back. And so they typically, you know, go down there. Now, one good thing about self-employed is you got better tax situation. You have more control over your taxes, which I think is a huge advantage. How many jobs can you have self-employed? I'm going to go 1 or 2. I think you could do 3 as an employee tops, which would be pushing it. I don't think you can do that self-employed because just the amount of roles that you're going to have to play, you doing that for 2 different companies is almost crazy. So maybe 1 to 2 tops in terms of income here. This left-hand side of the quadrant is called active income, meaning you have to work for it with your time, okay? And we just said that 95% of the population will be in this,
Wow.
in this area. And you can already think maybe of all the Latinos you know, the majority will be here. And even if they have a business, more likely they have a self-employed business, okay? So let's go to the other side. Yeah, let's go to the other side, business owner. So what's the difference between the self-employed, which is a business legally against with the IRS, and so is a business owner? The difference is that instead of owning a job, you own a system. So you get paid by building this system, and then people operate the system. They work with you, and I would also put product here if you're a product-based business. So people and product produce money, not just your time. And so what this does is it's a totally different way of thinking. So if you have people, you got to train them to run how you want to operate. So you have to build, you have to think of your business as a system. Every franchise is that. It's a system. What you're buying with the franchise is like, look, we figured out how to sell sandwiches, Subway. You know, we got it down. And if you own this Subway, you're gonna do good because we know how to run this business. Here's the business system called Subway. And this is what you expect to make on it based on your demographic. I mean, they got it down like a science. So that's a franchise. And the idea is, even if you did start a self-employed business, your job would be to turn that into a system. You know, I'll talk a little bit about Anita. It took her quite some time for me to convince her to go from self-employed to business owner. But when she did do that transition, it was pretty explosive in terms of the growth. Why is it so explosive? Because you're making money on people. And how many people could you have?
Endless.
As many as you can grow. How many, and if Anita wanted to, she could franchise to other cities and really start multiplying, right? She doesn't get that ambitious. I try to get her there and she, not always working, right? but if she wanted to, she can duplicate her system over and over and it would just produce more and more and more and more. So whereas you're limited to 1 to 3 on the left-hand side, you almost have infinite income on the other side, as long as you have a good system. And so your work, more time is spent on building this system to produce the results, okay? Really, really good tax benefits in that B quadrant because you get all the money and then you can decide how you split that and you can do all kinds of advantages. Really the goal is on freedom because as the business owner, you want to replace and delegate out, right? So the goal is to, you know, I'll put a picture here. You basically have expert people. You almost want to hire smarter people than yourself, where in the self-employed, you're like, I'm the best at what I do. As a business owner, you're like, let me bring in the best at what they do. It's similar, but it's a little bit of a shift. Let me bring in people that are amazing at what they do and let me lead them. So it's a lot more leadership, visionary, and just a different skill set to build this kind of, you know, kind of thing. Alongside with this, I'll do a little plug. You also want to use technology, right? So the best companies in the world, you know, I'll bring this over here. This is, you've all been to Chick-fil-A, right? Did you guys know that their pans are using AI to know if the little chicken nuggets that you guys like at Chick-fil-A are done? It's using technology to determine that. Machine learning, you know, TensorFlow, which is on Amazon. I mean, it's using some crazy technology to make sure that your little chickens are perfectly cooked. And I can do a whole lesson just on technology mixed with business, which is literally what Proveo does, what we do at my company. That's what we are all about, is let us get your business systems and let's figure out with technology how to make this more efficient and scale it even better. So the mixture, most of you don't know this, you just know the great customer service at Chick-fil-A, but combining amazing technology with amazing customer service and that human touch, that's the killer combo. That is the killer combo. But you want to use both, because if you know somebody in the back is cooking these manually, and they're in a fight with their wife on the phone, they're gonna burn those nuggets. You know what I mean? And the consistency is gonna go down. We're humans, right? So mixing technology with business is also a huge part of being successful in this in that other quadrant. Let me bring that up again. In this B side. So, you know, anybody that's a business owner really should be thinking about, how do I improve this business system? How do I get this more effective? And that's an insane way to start building wealth, because then the systems start working for you. Okay.
In a lot of ways, like these are mindset changes too, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
it's all,
massive mindset
so
changes.
much of this is just changes your mindset. It's crazy.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think the majority of it is changing the way you're wired, because like I said, the original system of going to school and getting the degree is really for this upper left box. Get the best skill, get the best job you can. They're not really teaching you, hey, why don't you build a fantastic business system and scale out globally? You know, it's not really the exact, you know, narrative that goes around schools. The last one on the bottom right is one of my favorite ones. It's where you put money itself to work. So in this one, people and products are making money. In this one, money itself is making money. And that used to confuse me. How does money make money? It makes it in three primary ways, which we've talked about. It makes it through investing in real estate, investing in stocks, crypto, financial assets, things like that. Any kind of product that you buy and moves up in value or down in value, right? It can go up and down. And businesses itself. So using capital to buy and trade businesses, okay?
Shark Tank.
Yeah, like Shark Tank, investors. Those are investors that are seeking maybe self-employed. Let me tell you what Shark Tank does. An investor finds a really good self-employed and turns them into a business. And that makes a ton of money. So they see, wow, these guys have an amazing donut, but they only have one store and it's this amazing cook that does it. Let's scale them out and turn them into a business and we'll make $1 billion. A couple of guys did Bombas socks. They were doing it out of their place, and now that's $1 billion sock company. But the investor knew how to turn them into a business, and because they know how to do that, they pay for the right managers and they get a team, and all of a sudden they're scaling out a business and they own a percentage of it. So
they get 15%.
Yeah, 15, 20% of $1 billion, pretty good payday. So investors are constantly seeking new opportunities. Their primary concern is what return on investment they're going to get with their money. And like I said earlier, they get money and immediately put that money to work. They don't put it in the bank account earning 0.5% in the bank account. That's not a good enough return for an investor. No VC would be like, yeah, 0.1%. That's not going to cut it. They want massive returns, 2, 3, 4, 500, 6. They want to flip their money and put that money to work. And making money work for you is the primary mind shift that you got to get, because all of us make money. And so, yeah, like I said before, you can make a very little amount and still have an investor mindset. You will not be small for long if you do that, because of the power of multiplication. Like we talked about, I think, in the last session, there's even a parable in the Bible that is all about multiplication, and Jesus, and they reward the guy that was able to multiply it by a lot. You know, he got rewarded, and even what the guy that was scared and didn't want to do anything and hid the money, that money was taken away from him and given to the guy that could multiply it. So there's a lot of powerful principles there. But you know, I wanted to kind of share this cash flow quadrant. To me, was really eye-opening to know that the majority of my time I was here in the employee climbing that ladder for security. And I was like, wow, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to be able to get over to this side, which I really wanted to be because of my expenses. So I want to stop right here and just see, you know, you guys' feedback on this and how do you feel. But I want to share a little bit of how do you move from what are some real life, this is like, probably this sounds great, but how the heck, maybe I don't even want to be a business owner, or I don't care about investments, right? So how do you start shifting your mind to move into these different quadrants? I just want to get some reactions or questions if you guys have some right now, and we'll dive a little bit into that. Any thoughts on this? I'll call you out if I have Patty, Lily.
Pablo, it's Vero.
Vero?
So can you go from employee or self-employed to investor, or it sounds like you're saying you have to be a business owner.
No,
Oh, okay.
not at all. So let me bring this up so you guys can, I'm not saying that because what you want to do is look at where your money is coming from. And the reality is you can get it from different ones. Let me show you this. You guys know this guy, right? LeBron James, one of the most popular players in the world. He is an employee of the Los Angeles Lakers, is he not? He exchanges his time for a pretty good salary for the Lakers. So he has a job, he's an employee. He does make a lot of money in that job, but still, nevertheless,
just a
he's
little
an
bit.
employee. Yeah, if he suddenly is not going to play anymore, or he's going to retire at some point, he will no longer make money from the Los Angeles Lakers. He's self-employed because he's a brand. LeBron's a brand himself. He does endorsements and this and that, all kinds of stuff. He owns tons of businesses outright. I can't even list them all here. Pizza places, things like that. Shaq is in the same bucket. Kobe Bryant, who passed away, was a huge business owner and investor. He was a venture capitalist. So these are athletes that somebody taught them this. Somebody taught them this guy. And investor, he's partial owner on a bunch of companies as well, LeBron. So LeBron's working on billion-dollar net worths. He's going up there, even though his employee income is, if you were to put dollar amounts on these buckets, the majority of LeBron's money is coming from this right side, and maybe even his brand, which fuels this. So the income from his job, his day job, is the smallest contributor to his income, although it does give him the platform, right? So it all kind of works together, Vedo, is what I'm saying is you don't have to, you can be an employee and invest. You can be an employee and purchase investments and seek opportunities for that. In fact, that's what we were promoting in the last one. You do not need to be necessarily a business owner. You could also be an employee and get equity in an organization, which is going to give you some sort of business owner rights, right? Or maybe it'd be more like an investor because you're owning a percentage of that business. So there's ways to still have your income, but what the shift in the brain needs to be is, I'm making this money now, what else can I do with that money in my skill sets? What other skills do I have that align with who I am that I can start putting you know, something to work? So I like this one here. I'll send you guys this one, but it says on the left, you're carrying buckets, you're renting your life. On the right, you're owning your life, you're building pipelines. That's a radical shift in thinking. And it says the limitations to changing sides from one to the other are mindset, capital, time, education, skills, and support. So what's preventing us from going from the left to the right are those things. And there's a bunch of different mindsets. I'm not going to read them all here, but there's a bunch of different ways that you have to start thinking about things that really help you kind of shift from one to the other. So I do want to, you know, give some real life examples of how you can shift from one to another. But I want to hear maybe some other questions before I jump into that for the last few minutes. Anybody else have any questions on this quadrant, or any concerns, or something does not make sense?
So Pablo, this is Cesar. So
Yeah.
you mentioned in the past that some very famous athletes never made the shift from employee, and they end up in their last days broke with no income. They die poor.
Right.
Why
And
is that? Can you comment a little bit about that?
yeah, the reason why is because the poor mindset, right? So they let me bring it up, but it's this one. So they think this way. So their income is great. So then guess what? Their lifestyle is also great. It matches it. I make $2 million. I spend $2 million. I'm gonna buy myself a Bugatti. I'm gonna rent homes all over the world. I'm gonna have 15 girlfriends. You know, they just spend a lot of money that comes in. There is no investments. So when the income dries up, guess what? The expenses don't. They keep going.
Keep asking.
Yeah, they keep having to, you know, you're gonna still have to pay that car, still have to pay that house, still have to pay that jewelry. And so when that income dries up, something goes wrong, you're done. You're done. And so that's why they end up poor.
Pablo, can you share like 2 or 3 very practical, concrete strategies, like changes that people can begin to do as you want to move from one quadrant to the other?
Yeah. So one strategy I can share from, you know, maybe personal experience. One is living below your means. So one way to really give yourself, because you're gonna need to figure out how you're splitting your money first, which was it was the homework of the last lesson. So once you know where your money's going, that's gonna share a lot that's gonna give you a lot of insight of, wow, like I'm not saving enough to be able to even build that 6-month reserve, or you know, or our expenses are way too high. And so maybe that'll adjust your spending. Like maybe I can't afford that car that I thought I could, or this trip, or this other thing. So number one is you really got to live below your means and get used to that. Every wealthy person I know lives below their means. Like proportionally speaking, you know, let's say some of Anita's clients that are billionaires and super wealthy, they own a $10 million home. That's expensive to us, but considering that they have $4 or $5 billion of net worth, that's actually like us living in a $20,000 home. You know what I mean? Like proportionally speaking, they're way below their means. So that would be number one, is really look at your income level and be like, hey, how can I start getting used to living below my means? Next thing so that's one practical thing, is because if you're always, so what I'm trying to say is the income and the expenses cannot match, right? You cannot keep them exactly the same. You cannot just make money and spend it at the exact rate. You're never going to be able to move forward if that's how it is. So that would be number one, and that may require some sacrifices. You know, living situations, cutting back a little bit.
Eating out was a big one.
Eating out, doing things like that. Those will all help with creating the capital gap. You know, you're going to need some money to be able to take some risks in these other areas. The other one I would say is work an extra job, right? Not an extra job employee, but one for yourself, something that you are good at, something that you do naturally well, something that you have a passion for, something that you enjoy. And you can start here in the self-employed, but you must quickly move to the business owner. You don't want to stay in the self-employed very long. Proveo, I think I was there for 2 months, a month or 2 months. And immediately I started bringing on people, because I know that if I'm running the show, is Ari on the call? I don't know if Ari's on the call.
She is.
Yeah, Ari's on the call. Yeah, if I'm running the show, Ari, how many things am I gonna forget?
A lot.
A lot, guys.
Free shot for Ari.
I'm gonna forget everything. You know who doesn't forget? Ari. So that's why you got to get people in that can help you with their strengths, things that they're great at, and you build that team. So what I would say, another practical thing, EVs, is think about what is something that I enjoy doing that I may, if you are so business inclined, that I can do around that. If you do not want to own a business, you're saying business is not for me, I don't want to do it, I hate doing that, I don't want to even think about it, then at the very least put your money to work. So get some education around investing, get some education about real estate if that is what you like, around stocks, around crypto, around dividends, around different financial assets. Go meet with financial planners, ask other people that are doing well financially, what are they doing? Do they have a contact for you? Start to network and understand and hang out with those people that are really building that kind of money. There's almost infinite resources online to learn about how to invest. So it's just, I would say a practical tip is go learn about it. At least go explore what does that look like. Because at the very simplest level, you could simply just buy an asset that gives you a dividend or that gives you a return, and just keep doing that. Just keep doing that. Every paycheck you assign 30%, whatever percent you can do, keep buying this asset. And over time, it will start to return money. And with that money, you can buy even more of that asset. And it's just starting to teach that good habit of investing. And then seek other opportunities, that line up with you. There's, in the business umbrella, there's an endless amount of investment opportunities.
Infinite.
YouTube, online, websites, marketing, I mean, you name it. We live in an era, guys, that if you wanted to sell vintage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you could build a business on that and be successful. I promise you, there will be people all over the country buying your vintage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures, if that was so much your passion. So, we should take advantage of the fact that we live in this day and age that the barrier to entry is so low at this point. Anybody can do this.
Well, I have a
I think-
question.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Sorry. What if you don't like the things that you like does not make money? Like what if you like to do something that there is no real like business that you can have behind it?
I have
I
never
guess,
found something that cannot make money. I mean, can you give
what
me
if you like to spend money? What if that's like your hobby?
what?
What if you like to spend money? So my question is like, can
Be
you
a personal
invest?
shopper. Be a personal shopper for someone.
That's true. But that's not self-employed, is it?
You could build a system around become really good yourself, and then turn it into a system and hire a bunch of other girls that also like to spend money.
Right. For
And you
sure.
build a system around that, right? I mean, who would have thought you could build a system around makeup or
But you can be an investor without needing like what you've been teaching right now is like you can become an investor without having to own a business.
Absolutely.
And
correct?
my second question is, will you be talking to us about the differences between a high yield and a low yield investments and what they look like and how to get into it?
Yes, so the latter parts of these sessions are going to split into 3 areas where we're basically going to focus primarily in the investment bucket. And there's, like I've been mentioning over and over, there's 3 primary buckets. So real estate and all the different forms, there's a lot just under real estate. Rental properties, flips, wholesaling. I mean, there's just a ton you can do with real estate. Then we're going to focus on trading, stock market, which, for those that may not be familiar with the stock market, when you buy a share of Apple, most people buy the Apple phone for $1,000. It would have been much better if they bought $1,000 worth of Apple stock, because Apple stock over time has been amazing. So it's just, you can ride the wave with these companies by owning a little piece of them. And you own a little piece by buying their shares. So if you are someone that loves makeup and you're like, I know a lot about makeup, and oh my God, this little company called Ulta Beauty is blowing up and I know that they're going to do fantastic, buy Ulta Beauty stock. And you would have made like 300, 400% in the last 2 years. Meaning if you put in $1,000, for every $1,000, you would have 4, right? So your 1,000 turned into 4,000, or your 10,000 turned into 40,000. Or your 100,000 turned into 400,000. That's amazing multiplication, right? So you can, that's a very passive way to make money, by the way. You're not really doing anything. Ulta is doing all the work. You're just riding the wave with them. You're supporting them as an investor. So the stock market doesn't have to be like this weird thing that is all like boring stuff. You can invest in companies and in things that you know and that you are passionate about supporting.
Pablo, I just had one thought about this that I think it is true. Like it is there each of these boxes to move into another one. And I even thinking of you, Pablo, like when you kind of made your transition from Sev One, you were really in a comfortable place, had a good paying job, and by all accounts, you had a lot to lose, like, and so
Yeah.
I do think moving there is a element of taking a leap of faith from every one of these boxes, like there is an uncomfortable feeling of like putting $1,000 in your money into Bitcoin, or like there is or taking the step of like, okay, I'm going to become a business owner. There that is an uncomfortable feeling, and I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, because they're afraid to fail, and
Right.
so
You're right.
so that I think that's got to be said. Like it isn't just, there is a choice, and it is scary sometimes. Like to
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will speak for myself. I actually really enjoyed my job at Sub One, but I always had a business owner type mindset, and so I knew at some point either I would have to have freedom to do that within the company, or I would have to leave and do a system myself, because we were just, I was an employee, but I was thinking like a business owner, system, 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 and even that's what I kept doing. I mean, Jessica's online. Anywhere I went, I built a system, So they're like, can you just do your job? I'm like, no, I need to build the system, So my mind is built to build a system. That's how I like to operate. But it was, I mean, they treated me amazing. I have nothing but good things to say about them. I was very comfortable. I worked from home the latter few years, and I got paid extremely well. Fantastic team, wonderful people, as Jessica knows. So by all intents and purposes, I was comfortable, but I still was not living out my purpose that I wanted. So Anita would see that, and she was like, not impressed, with my raise or with anybody I was doing, or anything that would happen good. She was not very impressed. She was like, dude, you need to get with it. Like, what are you doing? And she would bug me, and she would poke at me, and I would feel like, hey, I'm doing well. Like anybody else would be happy with our salary, blah, blah. And I would kind of defend it. And she knew me enough to be like, at what point are you going to do this? And a lot of people were telling me that. And it was, to answer your question, it was pure fear of failing because of my upbringing. Our father was poor, well, at least when I grew up, guys. I know Caesar and they were not poor when you were growing up, but when I was growing up, I was poor. So I felt like I was walking through life on a tightrope and there was no safety net. So I take every step very carefully because I don't have any backup under me to take care of me. I don't have a trust fund that's going to kick in a year or two. I don't have any net. And so as the primary breadwinner at the time, it was a huge risk. But I'll tell you what we did. What we did was I really started to work with Anita to build up her income and move her from self-employed to business. I kept our expenses low despite Anita, which everybody here knows Anita, that's a feat in itself, guys, to keep her in that townhome. But keeping her in that townhome kept my expenses low, even though we were making a lot of money. And that allowed me at some point to feel comfortable enough where the way we operated was I would pay with my sub one salary, I would cover all the bills. And with Anita's salary, we would invest and we would do other things with that money. So we lived off of one income. So I don't know how that looks like with you guys, but that's what we did. We decided to live off of one income. As we did that, we were quickly able to save up that 6-month reserve and then some, and then build enough of a cushion where I felt comfortable. Also scaling out her business as a system, she was making more than enough money to cover all of our expenses as well. So now the risk drops a lot, right? Because I'm like, okay, just with this one income, we're covering all of our expenses. We have the 6-month, we had almost maybe a year and a half of reserves actually at that time, because I'm very conservative, as you guys know. So it looks like I took a huge leap, which it was still very scary, but I did some things to kind of mitigate and to kind of like help me feel more comfortable. And a lot of them had to do with sacrifices and really focusing that I'm going to do this so that I can take that leap of faith. And losing that kind of salary, guys, and benefits and everything is when you're used to getting it every 2 weeks, it is scary, because you're basically betting on yourself. And that's where the leap of faith comes in, Nico, is where, at some point you gotta go for it. And, and that's where I had.
And it was mental. Yeah. It was like it's a mental thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also, there are some very practical things. Like if you have a lot of you have different skills. If you wanted to start a business around your skill, don't let go of your job and do it on the side, put in that extra time. And when you feel that it's growing enough and it's giving you enough of an income and more stable, then you let go of your job. So it's not easy to do both at the same time, but maybe at some point you will need to do that. So it's kind of like the monkey bar approach, where you don't let go of one until you do the other one, right? But that's what we did. And then what ended up happening is I love investing. So as I shifted to Proveo and Proveo started generating, and then also Makeup Anna B, what was really interesting, guys, is the pandemic hit and Makeup Anna B's income dropped to like nothing because she was completely shut down. So imagine I took the risk because of Makeup Anna B's income, and then it disappeared. So that's how life is, right? But luckily automation happened to do really well during the pandemic. So like the other one kicked in and covered it. And so, I'm very grateful to God for that. That transition happened. I had enough and just enough confidence with what was happening to take the leap. And then once we took the leap, and you can bet on yourself, for a lot of us, I think I know the people on this call, you all are champions. I mean, if you get thrown in the ocean, you're gonna swim. It's sink or swim, right? You guys are all swimmers. I'm telling you, you guys will not sink. So you have the fear that you will, but I promise you won't. You will not sink. You will find a way, and you have a great support system around you to help you. So again, those are some maybe more practical ways that you can make the shift. But anybody that did it had to go through kind of this like on the edge kind of thing, like, and I'm off, it's a little bit of that. There's for sure.
No, but Paulo, this is Ivan. And I like to chime in. I think it's scary, even if thinking about what if 5 years goes by, or what if 10 years goes by, and you're still in the same place, and you haven't moved forward or anything. I think that's even scarier. Looking back, and then now you're living with regrets. I think that's the worst part. And even now, like my wife, she's starting her contracting business, and there's sacrifices in the journey. We have a full family. I have my real estate business. It's not a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks, but luckily my brother and I, he's in real estate as well. We decided to switch up how we're gonna operate. We're gonna operate together. And while my wife is doing the British Embassy during the day, working in that, and then working in the contract business at night, yeah, it's gonna take sacrifice. Sometimes we're working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and then so we worked it in a way where sometimes I got to help her out with the kids, because we're dealing with 3 kids, and sometimes she got to create proposals, work on proposals, follow up with customers, this and that. In the evening, she's got to maximize that time. So I got to jump in, take care of the kids. And then that way I tell Josh, hey, chime in, help me out with my client, and that's a great thing about family, friends, that could probably help you out, And I think the best place to start, like wondering how am I going to get that extra income, is start off with your hobby. Like, what do you enjoy doing? That's a hobby that you do it absolutely for free, and probably start off there. See if you can create a business out of a hobby, because that could potentially lead you to creating a second business to create that income, where it allows you to start investing.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I will mention, even in that business, working on the business system would become the primary focus, which would free up that time again. So at the beginning, yes, it does take a ton of your time, but as you build the system out, your time is less and less and less needed. Even it's been happening to me recently. I'm not in all the meetings anymore. Ari's in these meetings, and I get kicked out of some of them. They're like, we don't need you. And I'm like, oh, like I just want to be here, guys. Like I'm here to help. They're like, oh, we're good. We've hired some amazing designers and amazing product managers and amazing software developers that are even more in tune with stuff that's going on than me, and they're more specialized in certain areas. So ultimately, the customer is getting a better process, Ivan, and you're getting your time back. So think about it from the customer's perspective. It's a shift from where you're at in your business. How do I build a system that can be run by someone else? And then you're still going to profit on that, and you can scale it out. And that's where your mind shifts. And then you get your time back. You get your time, and you also give opportunities to others, and you start building a team and going in a different direction. So I would say that would be the transition. It's not always just to be an investor, but even from the business perspective, moving to the business system is a transition as well.
Correct. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ivan.
Carlito, real quick, this is Axel.
Who's that? I'm sorry?
It's Axel.
Oh, hey, Axel.
How are you? Thank you for all the inputs and definitely great information. I just want to add, a little bit, a little bit retro, what you were mentioning in regards to transition, from either employee or self-employed, going to business, and how you save, I will say. But most likely it's what we really desire, because we really desire to spend money, right? And things sometimes are not that we don't really need. So it's a matter of like want and need. You know what I mean? So we have to we need to fall no more into need than want. Right?
Right. And that's a very personal thing, how people spend their money. I would just say that we know in the efforts of this class to make it simple, if we have the metric of our liabilities and our expenses, and you know that number, let's just say I'm just going to throw a number up to make the math easy. Let's say it's $5,000, okay? Those are your commitments every month that you have to pay, not expenses or what you spend, but like that's including your mortgage and light bills and all that stuff, right? So you need at least 5K coming in every month, right? So one model can look like you keep your job, maybe you love your job, you guys are saving some money, but now you're going to start investing. Now you're going to start, I want to do one real estate flip. I'm going to give a plug to Ivan. Ivan, find me a flip, man. Find me an investment property. Ivan's going to find it for you, right? He's a great realtor. Ivan and Josh are going to find you this flip. They're going to tell you what the return is going to be. And you can learn about that. Go read 3 books on it, if you want to. And you go and learn this. And with the money that you're making from your job, you now allocate a portion to get this loan, to do this flip. And now you make another. How much does an average flip make, Ivan?
Sorry, it could average from 30 to 40,000.
So now you're going to make another 30 to 40,000 on that flip, and you get your original money back. So you have a little bigger pot. You can do another one, and you can invest in other things. So it doesn't mean necessarily leaving one box. I think what I want to leave you guys with is any of your income coming from this right-hand side? And ideally, the right-hand side is the passive side. Although, I've already defined that it's not truly passive. There's always this curve at the beginning that you have to do. But once you get over that curve, it's kind of passive. I mean, for all intents and purposes, things are running on their own, and you can continue to grow it. And it does require still your leadership and everything, but it does not require all your time to generate everything. So you'll see the dollar bills, there's a lot more of them, right, on this side. So, I think it was Ivan who was mentioning it. It's like the sad thing would be if you're always on this left side, then you're the one giving up your time for money. Where on the other side, you get your time back and you can do other things and pursue other things that you want to do. So it is definitely worth getting on this side of it. Not only financially, but for your own sake of your own life, to get, we defined the most valuable thing in life to be time. So if you're getting your time back and you're generating wealth for yourself and for your family, that's what I think all of us really want, right at the end. So it's worth the investment of learning these skills so that you can understand how to get your money to work for you. And the next classes we're going to have are going to dive into very specific things of that. And even later on beyond this class, for those that want to, we're bringing in, right, Nico, like some pretty heavy hitters, man. Like
It's exciting.
I mean, I'm talking maybe the best in the business from what I've seen in their respective categories, like top-notch individuals in their areas of real estate, business, and stocks and crypto. So really know what they're doing. But I would also encourage you to go and learn on your own.
It's huge.
watch some YouTubers, follow some influencers around those subjects. Just by following on Instagram or reading a few blog posts, a week, you're going to start soaking in the lingo, the knowledge. You're going to start understanding how this works, and it's going to start clicking. You're going to be like, oh, that's how I do it. Oh, yeah, that's not that hard. I thought it was so much harder. Now that I know, I just have to open an account, connect my bank account, click a button, and all of a sudden I'm an owner of this stock. And every 3 months it's going to pay me something. Wow, that wasn't that hard. It took me 10 minutes, So it'll demystify some of these things, but we're going to be getting into the practical aspects soon. I just kind of wanted to lay these foundational concepts on you guys and let you digest them and kind of understand them first.
Pablo, I just wanted to ask you if you're gonna give us all these resources, like the stats on Latinos, are those available already?
Yeah, I can send the links. When we send the notes, I'll make sure to include all those links.
Please do. Thank you so much. It's been a great class, Pablo. We are really learning a lot. I'm gonna go and get a flip house.
Let's do it. Let's do it, brother. Let's do it.
Let's flip it, baby. All right.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you guys. I think we're going to stop it here, but if anybody has any